Hey everyone, today we are talking with an up-and-coming touring drummer out of Nashville who I get the privilege of sharing the stage with in StikYard. So welcome to StikYard Success Stories. If you've been following our channel for a few years, you're going to see this video as a break from the norm. Typically, we're only posting shows or shorts or in-the-now content, but we really want to break out and take advantage of different things with online content, podcasts and videos specifically built for this audience. And I guess 2023 is the year we're going to really dive into that. So this is a new show concept. It's StikYard Success Stories. Introductions aside, let's move over to the man of the hour, Andrew Edmonds. The man is an amazing drummer, amazing kid player, and typically if we have anything that's super complex with like our rototoms or our octoracks, throwing that part at Andrew, he just cuts through it like butter. Like I'm not sure that there's much that this man can't do. Andrew Edmonds, hey dude, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I'm glad you're able to take time out of your schedule to make something like this happen. I really appreciate it. You're the first one of these, the first one of hopefully many. And it's not just the guys in the group. I'm hoping to talk to producers. I'm hoping to talk to Mark/Fred, all the Freds.
Wow, you're able to pin him down.
Hopefully, it'll
He's a
probably be
tough
like
he's a tough get. Yeah, he's a
like
tough one
3 or
to
4 in the
get.
morning. Well,
Right. Exactly. Now, so this is the first one of these.
the very first. You
So
are
this is the pilot.
you are numero uno, so it all bridges on you. The trends that you
Okay.
establish are the trends we're going to keep forever.
I hope the network doesn't cancel us after you have me on, but I'll try to do all right for you.
Okay, so I kind of want to jump into talking about the career that you've developed over the past few years. But let's start with StikYard, because how long ago did you join the group?
So my first year was 2012, like winter, fall of 2011 was my first year,
Nice. So
way back when.
over 10 years.
Yeah,
It,
it's 10 years. Yeah,
it kind of
over. You're right. You're right.
breezes by, man. So what is do you remember what your first gig was?
First gig was drummer boy. That was like my first, like, uh, uh, experience with StikYard. And then, yeah, I would guess we call that a gig, right? That's like,
I would think so. Those were extensive processes. Like I remember, so 2012 was probably when we started, like in the summer leading up to that
yeah,
December thing.
yeah.
Like we had the speed bags and the bicycles, and I mean, there was just like a lot of stuff getting built for that show.
It was insane. And like, I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no clue at all. I showed up day one. I had no audition. I've heard with other guys that there was auditions or something. I somehow never got auditioned. Mark Miller, the director, he took me in like a back room. This sounds really weird. But, he then like showed me this life-size banjo. It was taller than me and was like, "Hey man, like here's a part." And that was it. And that the rest is history.
Just chucked into the fire. Wow.
Right out of the gate. Right out of the gate.
I got a handful of questions that I want to ask you about StikYard, like kind of, some of your favorite gigs, some of your favorite guys to play with.
Sure.
But before we do a deep dive into that, give us a background on who you are, like what you're doing now. As I know you teach, you record, you do live shows, you're kind of across the board. So let's like establish that baseline. Like who is this rock star?
Oh, yeah, I mean, drumming's my life. That's literally my full-time job. I tour a lot, I record, I teach, a healthy balance of everything. I just got off the road with Chase Wright, and we're gonna go back out on a spring tour here in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, float between a bunch of different artists, bunch of different sessions. My favorite thing to do.
So give me the list of artists that you like are currently perform with or have performed with.
The notable ones would be like Alexander Ludwig is a big one, Jesse James Decker, Levi Hummin, Cassidy Pope, Roman Alexander, and the list StikYard. The list goes on and on. But those are like some notable ones. In Nashville, you never know who's going to call you. You never know if you're going to be filling in for a buddy. So you kind of have to be ready for anything. Last year I probably played for 30 different artists at some point or another, somewhere in there. So it's a great challenge. You're always learning new music. Yeah.
Awesome. So how often would you say you're traveling out of the year?
So last year I did in total, I was probably on the road 150 dates, like out of town on the road, 150 to 200, somewhere in there. So a huge bulk of the year on the road. And then, yeah, if I'm home, I'm either recording or I'm teaching. And yeah.
I hear and yeah, but like just like from a logistical perspective of like the stuff that I've planned for, there's like I feel like there's paragraphs contained within that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little insane. The calendar's a little hectic, and I'm just always thinking, okay, what's next? What do I need to bring? What's there? Where am I going? How am I getting there? And you're just constantly juggling, things.
So how does a typical gig cycle work for you? Because I know like with teaching, you probably have like regular students there. You're probably in touch with like studios on and figuring out like scheduling and whatnot. Like how does that go for like say a typical month in your life?
With Nashville specifically, you're usually out. So bus calls usually like on a Wednesday at like midnight, and you get on the bus, you sleep the whole night, and then you're out on the road Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You're doing shows those days, and then you come back Sunday, and then you have usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in town to do teaching, lessons, whatever, recording. And then that's typical. Sometimes if it's a more extensive tour, you're out on the road, could be weeks, but typically it's like Thursday through Sunday, you're traveling, gigging, and then you come back, which is really nice because you can have a little bit of a life at home. So, and I love my bed and love my house. So yeah.
Moving on to performing with StikYard, how often do you get to perform with the group?
Whenever Mark Miller calls me, whenever Mark Miller wants to deal with me is when I get the call. So, it's really whenever we're working. So usually around the holidays, it gets pretty busy. Easter, and then sometimes there's those random one-off gigs, which are always fun. And yeah, so whenever we're working, I think I'm there.
Do you find that pretty easy?
I like to think I'm there.
Do you find it pretty easy to balance that with the other touring and recording demands?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is just learning the music, only because, well, there's a couple of reasons. Sometimes the instruments are so unique. So practicing these parts, you kind of have, for me, I have to be in the room and I have to like feel the instrument and like play it, because it's not something, I don't have an octarack in my basement and I don't have U-toms like in my kitchen. So like Mark, yeah, so that's the biggest challenge. So the instruments are super unique and the parts are never easy. So, it's kind of like both things. So I like to come in usually on my own. That's kind of how I learn things the best. And I'll just shed this stuff and practice for hours until I get it. The other guys can pick things up like super quick. They're insanely talented and it's amazing. But for me, I need to all right, I need to break this down, slow it down. And that's the hardest thing as far as balancing goes is, all right, I got to make sure I learn these StikYard parts, because Mark's gonna call me out.
I'm gonna take a mental note to find some B-roll of this of you playing these parts. But I know you tend to get a lot of solos on some of the more difficult stuff. Like I would say the U-tom is probably one of the more difficult instruments, and maybe even the octarack or some of the more complicated octarack parts. What's one or two of your favorite putting you front and center on a solo thing you've done for the group?
Any U-tom stuff, I love playing it. It is very rewarding to learn. It's extremely hard and the parts are solo written and I love the challenge. So U-tom stuff is great. I do love the octarack because It's very memorable. And what's really cool is when you have like four of them in a row and we're all doing the same thing. I think that those two things stick out the most. Yeah, so any of those instruments are a ton of fun to play. Octorok's kind of like, I don't know, it's like my home. I don't know. I feel most comfortable on that now. So that's always fun.
It's become very iconic, to say the least.
Yes. Yes. It's very iconic. And yeah, again, it's always challenging. Mark is a brilliant writer. I think the world of his writing. I think he's got a great sense of rhythm. It's always, I'm always learning. And that's another reason I absolutely love StikYard is it pushes me so far out of what I'm normally doing, like on a kit. It's always a challenge, and I try to learn as many parts as I can. So if I'm like covering for somebody, or you kind of have to be flexible that way. I just try to like, all right, I haven't learned that yet, but that looks like a lot of fun. So I don't know. It's like it's super rewarding when you nail one of these things because it's tricky. It's not easy stuff. And I tell everybody, like, out of all the gigs, the music in StikYard is some of the most intricate, hard music. I think it's a ton of fun. It's so much fun.
On that point, do you have like, a handful of gigs that like really stand out in your memory?
With StikYard?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say the NBA halftime shows are big like moments where it was just very cool to see everyone kind of on that stage, and like, I don't know, it felt like we really arrived somewhere and we got like really good reception from it. And it was surreal. It was so cool. And we did it, I think we did it 3 times. I think we did 2 for the Cavaliers and 1 for Oklahoma City, I think.
It was 4 in total.
It was 2? Was it 4?
Yeah, 2 for the Cavs, 1 in Oklahoma, and then 1 for Michigan State.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that one. Even that was amazing. So those stick out. Those are very cool. And it was such a challenge to like, okay, how do we do this on a basketball court? Like how does this, it was again, out of our comfort zone. And those were moments where like, I'll never forget those. And then the other one that also sticks out to me is when we went to Canada. I love that trip. Despite what some of the other guys might say, I love that trip. I had a blast. I thought it was so cool. We're leaving the country. And again, we just overcame a ton on that trip specifically. There was just so many hurdles and obstacles, and just to get to like perform and just to get there was a huge thing. And then when we got there, there was so many hurdles and we pulled it off, and that was great. And then aside from like the performance aspect, it was gorgeous. I mean, we went hiking, things that I never thought I would do, that kind of brought us there. So that was very cool. So those are my favorites if I had to like boil it down.
Who are a few of your favorite guys to perform with in the group, or like even not just performing with, but like who are some like the standout performers where you're like, oh man, I can't believe I get to play with this guy?
Everyone is it's pretty amazing. I just thinking about how on earth we got so many talented guys in one room. It's pretty incredible. I think the world of Cottrell. I think he's just like just an artist in so many ways. I mean, Dominique, Stefan, Trey, Justin. I mean, everybody just brings something different to the table. So Mark, when he wants to play with us. And I don't know. I mean, there's not somebody like specifically, but I don't know. Everyone's so different. Everyone brings different things. Everyone creates different things. Everyone's collaborative. Joe, we couldn't do any of this without you. Literally could not do any of this without you. Again, and the other thing is too with this group in particular is we're all so close, and the hang is just so great. I mean, out of everyone I've ever performed with, and I'm very biased to StikYard, I just have such a blast. Aside from the performing, it's like no matter how tough the situation gets, no matter what's happening, no matter how tired we are, if we're sleeping on a floor in an airport, we're laughing. Like we're able to like laugh at the situation. We're always making jokes. We have millions of inside jokes and memories and experiences. And yeah, I mean, StikYard was like my first professional gig. It was like my first exposure to all this stuff. So like growing up with these guys and, you know, sharing all these like amazing, incredible experiences with them has been great. So it's not like I don't know. It's like you're performing with your brothers, like your family. Like it's like, oh, you're just so comfortable with each other. Yeah. So I mean, I love everyone. Everyone's great. Like there's no, yeah, everyone's awesome.
Definitely with you on that one. Like, I love how, like, just with all the custom instruments that we work with, I tell, like, even all the new guys that come in, I tell them, like, look, this stuff's gonna break. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
when you start feeling a wheel come off or something start to shake, like, come to somebody and say, hey, this is happening. Like, because you know,
Right,
if it's breaking on you, it's broken before.
right.
And that leads to, like, you know, frustrations across the board. But as far as groups that handle frustrations really well, that turn it into, like, turn everything into a joke or everything into
Oh.
just a learning opportunity, like, this group has been great.
I mean, the amount of times we're like, you've got to be kidding me right now. Like this is really happening. You know, yeah, and it's taught me so much as far as like being adaptable and flexible and like so many lessons I learned that I like applied to other things like throughout my career. It's just like things are going to change. You got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable. You just got to like smile and deal with it no matter how crappy the situation is. Yeah. So, and with StikYard, we've had everything. I feel like there's always something, you
I think
know.
my favorite one was when we were doing like a stadium gig in Nashville, and I think we were like opening for Martina McBride, and the stage designer just like kept making our stage smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I think to the point
Oh
where,
yeah,
like, yeah, that was the one where Benji had like quads on a roller, and he like
sure.
like we had to zip out on stage because it was just so much stuff, and like his stuff almost like went off the edge into the crowd.
Yeah. I mean, right. And like, it's those things where you never forget it. And I was also thinking like when we did, I think it was in the Edward Jones Dome or whatever it's called now in St. Louis.
Mhm.
We had all this choreography mapped out, months of choreography. We had everything spiked. We had all these spike marks and we're rehearsing for days. And then we go to do the show and this is live. And then all this confetti comes down. All this confetti comes down, covers every single spike mark, everything. So again, it's like, you know, you prepare so much and then they don't tell you there's going to be, you know, millions of pieces of confetti just covering the stage. You don't know where you're at. So like those are moments where, you know, it happens. It just happens.
So you were touching on a point a few minutes ago that kind of leads into my next big question here. Like, what other things have you learned from performing with StikYard that's influenced decisions in your current line of work, and then vice versa? Like, what stuff have you taken from touring to then bring back to the group?
Yeah. So yeah, again, so like StikYard, I was in high school when I joined. I was in high school, so I was
Oh,
a
no
senior in high
joke.
school. It
Wow.
was my senior year when we did Drummer Boy. So I was still like, we were rehearsing till like 3 a.m. some days, and I'd have to go to school at like 7. You know. So again, things I'll never forget. But like uh, yeah, it was my first exposure to anything professional. Like, and again, like at a young age, I'm so fortunate and so lucky to somehow, you know, have the opportunity to do any of this. But like at a young age, never really gigging in my life. I never did shows up until like that point, like real legitimate shows. But yeah, again, just being flexible, being open to learning anything uh you know those two things, I mean, you can carry with you throughout your life, but specifically like in the music world, I feel like those are invaluable. Like I've seen guys not be that flexible and not, you know, be willing to change, and that doesn't really get you too far. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think just those two, if I had to like boil it down to two main things, it's the, you know, flexibility and just you know, also just, you know, getting along with people in a group. Like the hang is everything because you're spending, you know, days with these guys. I mean, the show is only a handful of minutes, or you're only doing a couple songs sometimes. Other than that, you're hanging out with these guys. So, just again, we're very fortunate to have a group that gets along so well. But always trying to joke around, make sure everyone's having a good time, and I think that's super important. I think that goes such a long way. I think all of that translates to the stage too, because we all have fun no matter what we're doing. So yeah, I think those are big things. I totally forgot the question you were asking, and I just rambled. So
no, you're spot on.
That one's on me. That one's on me.
So I think I got like 2 or 3 questions left, and I can let you get back to your life. So as for you, what big opportunities are on the horizon for Andrew?
I'm going on tour in a couple weeks, and that's through the spring. I got a couple things in the summer coming up. Nothing that's announced yet, so it's still kind of like, hey, hold these dates, but nothing's been announced. But a couple tours. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think every opportunity is kind of a big opportunity, because you just never know. You never know where this stuff's going to wind up. I mean, just me getting into this group was all happenstance too. So, and you never know. Again, after Drummer Boy, I thought that was it. I thought that was really cool. I don't know how that all came together, and it was such a cool experience, but I thought that was it. And then, a handful of months later, could have been even a year later, I'm thinking I'll never see these people again. And then Mark calls me and says, do you want to do this arena thing? And yeah, and then that's when we really started to travel. But again, I ramble. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just playing as many shows as I can, playing for as many people as I can. And yeah, those are all big opportunities to me.
So the arena thing, was that the 2012 Joyce Meyer thing? That
was the Joyce Meyer? That was I don't know how many he did before that, but for me, that was my first, outside of Drummer Boy, that was my first StikYard gig. We're not at Grace Church.
I want to say that that was one of the first. I know he had done something with them 5 years before or so, but it wasn't he didn't have as big of a crew at the time. And and one of the things I remember that's kind of relevant to this, we had talked about YouTube and social media and stuff, even all the way back in 2012. Thankfully we're finally on here, and
right.
But he like many people in the media industry was very adverse to taking this content and just slapping it up there, because at that time DVD sales were still a very prominent part in media.
Sure.
And the way that we got found by the first third party, it was Life Church in Oklahoma City that we've done a lot of stuff with. The reason they found us was, I think it was Rob Cartwright's mom had taken a video of one of the songs, and that ended up on YouTube, and it was the first StikYard viral hit. And that's how a handful of other venues found us. So it's it was just some random low quality video on YouTube that actually kicked that whole touring thing off.
That's insane. And speaking of actually Rob Cartwright and the randomness, the way I got into the group is kind of crazy. I used to practice in my parents' basement, as we all do, and all the neighbors would hear me all the time. And neighbors that we weren't even that close with were you need Andrew to reach out to Rob Cartwright. Rob Cartwright was a nephew or somehow related to these people. And they're Rob's a drummer and you need to get in touch with Rob. So I call Rob. I don't know this guy at all. Again, I'm a senior in high school. And he's like, oh, you need to come up to Grace. You need to meet Mark Miller. And again, had these people not heard me play drums in my parents' basement and even open their mouth, I would never be here right now. I'd have no idea any of this was going on. So super crazy. And yeah, and then I just met Mark, and he's like, hey man, he was this huge banjo. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And that was it. And yeah, so it was crazy. It's insane how it all works out.
I'm just thinking Rob played an integral part in a lot of the early years of the group. I probably need to get him on the show.
You absolutely do. We all need to hear from Rob, because we haven't seen him.
Been a while.
Where's Rob at? Yeah, he's one you need to pin down.
Is there anything you want to add about I mean, just like insights you've had in StikYard or different gigs that stand out to you, or just anything, or even stuff with your current career.
I guess I do want to say thank you to everybody who like takes the time to watch our stuff and share it. So I feel like a lot of our gigs come from, like you said, like people sharing our material. And I know there's a million things to watch out there nowadays, and there's content everywhere. And for somebody to like watch one of our things, I think it means a lot, and especially to share it. It's a huge help. And like we've talked about, you never know where this stuff's going to wind up. So I don't know. I think that's really important. And, thank you everybody who's supported us, for longer than I've been in the group. But yeah, we literally couldn't do any of these gigs without you guys. So it's very cool. Trying to think what else do I want to say? What is this called? The Yard Cast? What is this?
The Yardsticks.
The Yardsticks. What is this?
Matt Mahler's Stick of Yards.
Yes.
It's called StikYard Success Stories.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I had like a handful of working titles, but I don't know. I like alliterations, so.
Right on. That's great. And this is awesome. This is awesome, by the way.
Last question overall, we'll wrap it up. Where can people find more of your stuff, like your recordings, or find out more about your performances?
You can follow me on Instagram. It's andrew.j.edmonds. That's probably the best spot to, like, if you want to reach out to me. You can also go to my website. It's aedrum.com. I'm on Facebook as well, Andrew Edmonds. But any of those, feel free to reach out. Tag us in anything, and then follow StikYard too, right? StikYard on Instagram, StikYard everywhere. So that's where you can find me specifically. If you didn't have enough of me now, if you wanted more, go to those spots.
Well, dude, thank you again for being the inaugural guest on this experiment. I'm hoping it goes places, and like, I truly appreciate you just taking an hour out of your day to chat about this.
Of course, man. Happy to be here. Thank you so much, by the way, for doing this and like doing all the social media stuff and the website and the Facebook. Like, I mean, we owe you, and just everything you do outside of that, which is fixing everything that I don't know how to fix anything, and just being awesome, man. I mean, seriously, you're like MVP. We couldn't do this without you. I really appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate it. Like, thanks again. We'll catch you on the next gig.
Cool. Thanks, man.
I hope you enjoyed that little deep dive into Andrew's career and got some insights about our group in general. Let us know in the comments what you think about the new format. Do you like it? Are there things we can improve on? Or are there any other behind-the-scenes content you would like to see? And if you want to consider supporting more videos like this, we have a Patreon page. I'll put the link to that in the description below. It really helps us produce more content like this that's squarely directed at our online audience. And speaking of which, a big shout out to our very first Patreon patron, Matt Schultz. We truly appreciate the support, and thank you so much for being a fan. And thanks again for tuning in. We will catch you next time.